guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited about today's video because today's video we are tackling our kitchen. Well, the first part of our kitchen. So we decided we wanted to do a DIY coffee bar, and that has been in the works for a long time, pretty much since we bought this house, because we just don't have enough counter space. So let's just get right into it because I don't want to ramble on. I want you guys to get to the good content. I'm so happy to share this with you. This is part one, of course. Part two will be coming out. Without further ado, let's get into it. So guys, we're currently taking off the little trim, decorative trim here, and this was the paper, the wallpaper we had on this wall, which is why it looks so awful. Wallpaper, like, ugh, yuck. Just for the record, I don't loathe wallpaper, but I do loathe wallpaper in this house. But anyways, for this project, we're going to be using a 24-inch base and a 15-inch base for the coffee bar. So the first issue we noticed is that we don't have the corner brackets in order to drill into the countertop. So what we did is kind of just take these little triangles and make brackets for ourselves to drill in. So we just started off by clamping the triangle to the cabinet and then started pre-drilling our holes. So these triangle pieces were just some scrap pieces we had from leftover cuts of wood. And actually you might remember this from a previous DIY that I did. But anyways, after we pre-drilled those holes, we sunk in the screws and we just made sure that it was secure, so we actually put screws on both sides. Once we were finished with that, we just started prepping so that we could attach the cabinets to the wall. So we did this by attaching the cabinet to the furring strips and the furring strips to the stud in the wall. But before we did that, we had to actually use shims to make sure that both of the cabinets were at the same height before we drilled them into the wall. So as you can see here, we're using a level just to make sure that everything is in fact correct and level. So now it was time to cut our countertop to size. Using a handheld circular saw, we just actually marked how long our countertop needed to be for the base cabinets and started cutting along that line. This was a relatively simple task. It just got tricky when we got to the backsplash part of it. My husband had to get a little creative with that cut, but he did an amazing job on it. Once the cut was made, we just did a dry fit test just to make sure everything fit securely before we actually screwed it onto the base cabinets. It's a little hard to see, but we're actually screwing screws in that triangle brace that's actually going up into the countertop. Honestly, this was such a great idea by my husband, and it makes assembly and disassembly that much easier. And in no time, we had ourselves a countertop. Oh, and yes, I cleaned that up. Alright guys, so probably the last thing you saw was us screwing in the countertop to these cabinets right here. So this right here has changed. We since have decided to go with a different pantry, and the reason for that is because our pantry was like lopsided. Honestly, these cabinets together I think are really going to add to this space. So what we're going to be doing next is actually paint the walls. You're probably looking at this and saying, what are you doing here, Rachel? And we are going to take care of that as well. But first, painting. So the wall color we chose was Crisp Linen by Behr. And when you're working in kitchen and bathrooms, you just want to make sure that the paint that you're getting is in the right finish for the space that you're using it in. So funny enough, I picked this color before I actually saw a physical paint swatch of it. Luckily for me, it did work out and I love the color, but I would definitely advise you if you're painting to try to get some paint swatches and or some paint samples. I just love how this color turned out because it actually pulls out the hues in the countertop that are a little bit darker and creamier, and it just works so well. But yeah, so happy about it. Alright guys, so I got cut short last time, didn't finish all the painting, so I'm going to finish the painting now and do the second coat. We moved the pantry, so now I can actually get behind that too and paint where that is, so let's do that. Oh, look at her in just such good spirits, not realizing that painting is going to consume her life for the next few weekends. Why yes, you're right, I only painted 3 cabinets and some walls, but let me say, be mentally and physically prepared if you are going to tackle your kitchen and paint some cabinets. And buy a sprayer, definitely buy a sprayer. And as you can see, due to my height, I cannot reach the top of the walls. So actually, off camera, my husband came in and cut in for me, so I really appreciate that. But I painted everywhere else that I possibly could reach, so I painted around the light switches and the outlets, and I made sure to paint around the trim as well. So we just put some tape around those areas to make sure that
when I was cutting in, I wasn't getting it on the trim itself. So we painted 2 coats of the crisp linen onto the walls, and we made sure that when we did the second coat, we did not let it dry before we actually pulled off the tape. This is really important just so that you don't actually pull away the paint that you already painted on.
Alright guys, so we're starting fresh, we're starting early. So we've already taken the doors off our cabinets right now, and what I'm going to do is sand this down and clean it up before I actually prime it. These are unfinished cabinets, so I'm not sure if this is the step that you have to take for unfinished cabinets, but we just wanted to do our due diligence here and make sure that everything was perfect, and to make sure that the paint that we're going to put on is going to last a long time. So I'm just giving it a light sand with 220 sanding blocks.
So I skimmed over this process, but if you're painting cabinets that you've had for years, you definitely want to make sure that you clean and sand them. This is to make sure that you get off all that grease and everything, especially if you're painting them white. You don't want that grease to come up through the color and have it yellow over time. There are countless resources out there when it comes to painting your cabinets, but if you want some more or an insight on what I did, I can definitely make a video of that. So as you can see here, I'm painting with a white primer, and this is just to give my base cabinets a good base before I put on the dark color that I'm about to put on. So once the primer was dry, I was ready to move on to my actual paint color, which is actually Carbon by Behr. And I really love this color because it's actually a true black, which is really hard to find these days. So black might seem like a drastic color to paint it, but I was so excited about it, clearly. So I used a simple paintbrush to paint on my first coat of the black. Now I will say, because it created some paintbrush strokes, I did go over with a small roller on the second coat to make sure that it had a more cohesive look. The upside about using a paintbrush though is that it's much easier to get in the nooks and crannies of everything when you are painting. So I did the same thing with my doors. I just made sure I painted with a paintbrush first and then used a roller afterwards. And now we're going to put up some shelves. So we got these amazing brackets at Home Depot. They are definitely on the more expensive side, but I just love the look that I couldn't pass them up. So we spaced the brackets 20 inches apart from themselves and 9 inches from the ends, and then we just screwed them to the board. So for the wood shelves themselves, I wanted to go for a more natural raw look, so I decided to leave them without stain and just seal them instead. I know it's not everyone's vibe, but I just love how it looks in comparison to the stark black. So for our bottom shelf, we actually measured 20 inches from the countertop up to where we actually placed the shelf. We made sure it was level, marked the holes, pre-drilled the holes, and then sunk them in. Now, because there was no stud where we placed those brackets, we ended up using wall anchors that could hold up to 25 pounds, which is perfect for this little area. I also specifically wanted the shelving to be the same length as the countertop itself so that it could reach the distance of the wall to the pantry. To me, it just makes the shelves look more purposeful and like they were meant to be in that space all along. So once we were done completely screwing in the bottom shelf, we just used our level to make sure that it was indeed level before moving on to the next shelf. So from our bottom shelf, we measured up 17 inches and placed our second shelf there. It created a perfect amount of distance for me to actually place things on these shelves while still maintaining that it wasn't just too far up. It's honestly one of my favorite things about this DIY.
Hi, baby. Hi. Hi. Yes, hi, baby. This is Brooklyn, by the way. This is my puppy. So I left you guys hanging. I apologize about that. But I did want to let you know that we actually did finally cover up that awful, awful wallpaper wall. So we didn't actually do it. It's just kind of like a 3/4 wall. But we actually put up, I call it beadboard. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's called. It's like wainscoting. I ended up painting it and then we brad nailed it to the wall. We put that up and all that is taken care of. It is not behind the cabinets because obviously we did this backwards. This wasn't on the original plan when we were planning this whole thing. I'm not too worried about it because in a few years anyways, this whole wall is coming down and we're doing open concept. I honestly can't wait for that. So right now I'm going to use the paint to cover up the nail holes that are a result of the brad nailer. So we are almost finished. The final thing, of course, what we have to do is style it up. So let's just get right into it because I know you're probably dying for the reveal. All right, guys, I hope you're ready because I'm about to show you in 3, 2, 1. That is it for the DIY coffee bar. I hope you enjoyed it. While it was a big undertaking, there's a bigger undertaking. That's right, it's part 2 of our kitchen makeover, which I'm really excited to share with you guys. But I will say I'm working on it literally as soon as this video is over with. Like, I'm jumping right onto it. So I want to make sure that I am putting in the time needed, but I also want to let you know that I have lofty ideas for it, including building cabinet doors. Just want to also shout out to my husband and my father, my dad, who's amazing, who like literally took my text messages and phone calls and FaceTime calls anytime, literally every time that I reached out to him. You were the real MVP. Yeah, but yes, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, definitely make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, if I pass that vibe check for you, definitely make sure you're subscribed and you hit the little notification bell so you're in the know when I post again. And you definitely want to be subscribed for part 2, guys. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. You guys are amazing. I cannot speak enough of you. And if you're new here and you subscribed recently, thank you so much. And if you've been here from the dawn of time, well, at least the dawn of my channel, thank you so much. Thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. And stay tuned for part 2. Bye, guys.